Yes, people, what's going on? Welcome back to YouTube again. We're in for pull today. This is actually a session I've never put on YouTube. So pull ham session. You see we're on the Atlantis lying ham to start. I don't know how much chatting I'm going to do in between here. It depends kind of how busy it gets. There's strength camp on here tonight, so we'll see how it goes. But Atlantis lying ham here to start. So this will be obviously the first movement of the session. Atlantis lying hamstring curl. Does get heavier in that shortened position. While I'm fresh, first movement of the session, as I said, I'm going to use that to my advantage, as our next movement will be a stiff leg, which is obviously going to load everything in that lengthened position. So while I'm fresh, getting the most out of short, and then we'll move on to stiff leg. Okay, so one top set, one back off here. No, actually that's a lie. 2 straight sets, keeping them in a higher rep range, so 12 to 15. You see I'm using wrist straps here, okay, just to kind of pull myself into the machine. I need to burp. How much effectiveness did it have? You know, it's debatable. I think it's more a mental thing for me. It's just knowing that I don't have to concentrate so much on really pulling myself into the machine. Like, my grip is taken care of to a degree. As I say, look, it's one of those things, I don't know if it has a whole lot of effect, but if it helps you in any way, even mentally, do it. It's just something that I've always kind of done on a lying hamstring curl, just for my own, like I said, my peace of mind, and knowing that I can pull myself in, not have to worry too much about my grip. But yeah, this hurts, this machine. As you'll see, it gets heavy quite quick at the top. You think you're flying, and then it's like that last rep just hits you all of a sudden. But it is really, really nice machine. Like I said here, making use of the fact that it loads quite heavily in the shortened position, and while I'm fresh in this session, just getting the absolute most out of it, because I want to train the hamstring across every range, but also I just want to train my hamstrings more. So a couple of simple cues as well for any hamstring curl. I've probably said this like 1,001 times in different videos. But my biggest thing I'm thinking about is driving my quads into the pad, be that seated or lying. And again, that's just driving tension across the hamstring before we even move out of that lengthened position. It is almost like in a lying hamstring curl, there's so many variables to think about in terms of holding yourself into the seat. Consciously engaging my lats when I'm pulling onto the handles, okay, just allows me to keep a much firmer grip over my whole body, like keeps my body stable. Slightly rounded lower back as well is a conscious thing they're trying to do, as well as upper back, which is allowing me to brace a bit harder on my core too. Now you will see there's probably some degree of pelvic movement in that hamstring curl itself. You can minimize that as much as humanly possible, but some people obviously just have a predisposition to move anyway. Now, between outrageously lifting your hips and some pelvic movement, there's a big difference, okay, in what you're actually doing there. Knowing that it's actively placing that load across the hamstring as opposed to just hip thrusting the weight up to a certain degree as well. So it might be a case of obviously dropping some load at some point to correct that issue if it is a thing that you see commonly in your hamstring curls. But again, you will get some degree of pelvic movement just because of where the hamstring does attach right up almost into the hip area. But yeah, other than that, there's some basic pointers for your hamstring curls. Okay, so onto our hinge movement then. In my case, a stiff leg deadlift here. I'm just sitting down here for a minute, so bear with me. A stiff leg deadlift. Now, won't talk too much on different variables, different techniques, because I'll probably do an entire YouTube video on how to get more out of your deadlift, what you're potentially doing wrong with your deadlift, etc., etc. It is one of those topics that there's just a lot to cover, depending on the individual as well, how they kind of process a hinge pattern and what suits them and what doesn't suit them. For myself, and Curtis here behind me as well, our priority here is loading as much as possible through all parts of the movement. So that is not overly controlling the eccentric, but taking somewhat of a measured eccentric in a 3 to 4 second eccentric, okay, loading the likes of glutes, hams through that lateral position. Obviously, no matter what, you're going to get erector loading from a hinge, so that is just a given anyway, and it is a lot of posterior chain loading. Now, you can minimize your likes of glute, ham involvement, depending on, like I said, how much you actually control that eccentric, but again, my priority here is the most stimulus from the least load possible, okay? If I wanted to purely move some load, I wouldn't be too concerned about the eccentric. I wouldn't overly tax my hams and my glutes, but I want to get the most from the least here as well. Especially in, obviously, a prep scenario, as you get deeper and deeper into it, it's managing recovery is a big thing, but not just, I do have a tendency to overly send myself at times, okay? Not knowing when to call when I'm done, versus actually just leaving the rep alone, okay? So that's the other side of it as well. It's like making sure I get the most from the least, and I'm not just shifting some load with it.
Come on!
Whew. Okay, next on the agenda we have 2 sets of adductors. Now, making the best of the prime kit here, and using the first set in cam 4, which is at mid-short range, and second set is in cam 5, which is mid-lengthened. Adductors, again, like I said, train them twice a week, have them for well over a year now. I don't have the greatest legs in the world, okay, but I definitely have a lot less of a gap in between the legs than a lot of people do, and they do add that thick, dense look to your legs. Again, I don't have thick, dense looking legs, need a shit ton more quad, but my adductors are almost half decent, we'll say. You know, it's visible adductor in between the legs. It is from training them directly, okay? You will get use of your adductor in the likes of, you know, a deep squat pattern, a deep leg press pattern, everything like that. But if you can directly train the muscle, why wouldn't you, in my opinion? And again, as I said, I think it's a fundamental to actually having like decent legs, you know, like they make your legs look thick and dense, so do not neglect them. So 2 sets here, and then we're on to back exercises after that.
Oh, DJ spot on, come on! Yep. And again,
1.
come on. Drive. Yep, come on.
Oh, fuck. Jesus Christ. Fuck. Right, so see, in that as well, something I make a conscious effort to do is spend some time in both ranges, so in that lengthened range and in that shortened range as well. I'm not just fucking hipping the weight in as well. Okay, my hips are back, lower back is on the pad, and I'm pulling myself in, making sure that I place all of the load across my adductors, and I'm using my adductors, okay? I'm not just throwing the load with my whole leg, basically. Okay, so first back exercise is going to be a bilateral pull down. Yes, bilateral. Someone called the hypertrophy police. I'm not doing the single arm pull down. What the fuck? This is more so from a time efficiency thing as well. As I said at the start, this is quite a heavy session. But again, making substitutions like this with exercises where I can still get the same job done, I'm just making sure my head is in the shot here. I can still get the same job done, okay, in literally half the time, because I'm not essentially doing 4 sets, 2 per arm, whereas I can get the same thing out of this, okay? I know where I have to kind of set myself up to get what I need out of it. So again, this whole thing online of like, you know, doing single arm pull downs and not doing bilateral pull downs and blah, 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 okay? If you get stimulus for it, direct it where you want it to be on the muscle itself, there's no problem, okay? And I know I like harp on about this all the time, but it's just such a common thing now online where people are fucking bitching and moaning about you should do this and you shouldn't do that, okay? The main mechanism that drives hypertrophy is stimulus, okay? So if you can get stimulus for something and it's not quote unquote optimal, who gives a fuck? You know, like this is the big thing. It's like that's what I was saying earlier. At times, it just comes back to actually just training as well. You know, like, and I think a lot of younger people now are exposed to obviously the likes of the mechanics side of things, as opposed to where, like, when I started training, it was just, I trained like a meathead, like a dickhead. Like, I can't tell you many times I've died under a leg press because I just put too much weight on it with no idea where to actually go with it. But again, I think that's a newer thing now where everyone's just exposed to the optimal and the fancy movements and things like this. And it's like, just actually learn to train hard first and do what you can with what you have, but also like whatever just drives stimulus is going to drive your vertical, like I said. So, you know, before anyone comes at me for doing a bilateral pull down and not a single arm pull down, fuck off.
And again. Come on.
Okay, next onto the prime extreme row. I was going to call it the upper back row. Probably my favourite upper back row of all time. As many times as I've pulled this out of rotation or adjusted, whatever like that, I just always come back to it. Fantastic movement. I think it's one of those ones that people don't give it enough time of day, because there is a bit of messing around with the setup to get it right and for it to feel right for you. You know, a lot of people will just abandon it at the first opportunity and be like, ah, fuck that, I can't be arsed. But I do think if you can get the setup right, it is one of those ones you can absolutely rinse, especially with the loading parameters of it. Obviously, being able to load it in different positions and suit us where we're strong and where we're weak, again, just to get the most out of that. So primarily what I do with anything that's prime loaded, when I'm loading that mid-lengthened range, I will generally put about 60% of the load on top, 40% in the middle. That is how they reckon it's loaded from a pin perspective anyway, and it suits us very, very well to load it like that as well. So that's just my rule of thumb when I'm loading anything prime. It's usually like a 60-40 split. If you want to do 50-50, you know, like marginal gains at the end of the day, does it make a massive difference? Probably not. You're still doing the exercise right, you're getting the most out of it. But that's what I roll with here. Now, I normally, with this one, it is quite a demanding movement, but I normally work up in sets of like 2s all the way up to my working set, not expending too much energy in the warm-ups alone. And purely because this is my first upper back movement, I'll just give a couple of extra warm-up sets. But yeah, that's it. So we get into it. Upload and reps there. Okay, we'll take that. Couple of things as well with upper back training, I suppose. Just one or two cues. What I'm thinking about here is reaching out in front of me. Obviously, we want to move through scap, protraction, and retraction, but that's not just, when you talk about that, it's not just letting everything go slack and losing all that tension across your upper back. Okay, reaching forward is going to allow you to maintain that tension across your upper back, not just dropping your shoulders and allowing everything to move forward. Okay, that's just disengaging from the movement. So, trying to catch my breath. Jesus. Reaching forward as opposed to, as I said, just dropping everything forward. Staying, driving tension across that upper back and just allowing that musculature to do the work then as well. Initiating with this movement and then allowing the elbows to facilitate the rest of it. That is what's going to allow us to get the most out of our upper back. I actually have quite a pump there, even just doing that, which is nice. So. Okay, so a single arm cable lat row here next. Final lat exercise of the session. Again, just finishing the lats off if you want. Rowing from a slightly high to low position here. Again, thinking about dragging the elbow along the ground and almost wrapping it around the lats at the back, okay? Not moving past that midpoint of the body, okay? Anything past that, we are just recruiting that upper back musculature, and we want to stay directly on the lat here, okay, and just completely exhaust that. Really, really nice exercise. I've been doing this for like the longest time. It's one of those ones that it is quite difficult to progress because of how difficult it gets in that short position. So still plenty of runway on this stack. Stack is pretty heavy anyway, but even still, it's like I don't have to sub it out for the sake of just because it's a cable stack. You know, there are certain movements I can't get away with. Not a humble brag at all, just certain movements I can't do. Like anything bilateral on a stack, generally going to run out of room pretty quickly. I'm not the heaviest, if not the lightest stack in the world, put it that way. But really, really nice movement. And again, I've been doing this for like the longest time. It's one of those lat movements that I just feel so much. And again, if you feel like you get something out of it, or a lot out of it, as opposed to something that's potentially better on paper, then what's the point in doing the thing that's better on paper? You know, sort of way. But even still, it's like, if you find an exercise that suits you, roll with it until the wheels fall off. So a couple of things to see there as well. I'm taking a wrap. That's okay, especially when you're doing unilateral work. You have to treat them as two separate sets. Okay, you're just cutting yourself short on the. Obviously, it goes without saying, start on your weaker side. Okay, but if you're not taking any rest in between your weaker side and your stronger side, you are potentially cutting yourself. Not even potentially, you are cutting yourself short in terms of expenditure on the stronger side, regardless of the fact, even if it is stronger. So yeah, that wraps up pull. Finished there with 2 sets of upper back pull down. Again, just hitting the finer bits of the upper back musculature, getting that finished off. Again, arm pack is the big thing there. You'll see that I'm driving down and back. I'm not just driving straight down by my sides. Okay, keeping those elbows out and flared, driving it into the upper back area there. 4 sets of biceps to finish then. So 2 sets facing the stack, 2 sets facing away. Again, just taxing the bicep across all ranges. And that wraps up pull. So that's the first time I've ever done a pull session on the YouTube. I'm pretty sure it is anyway. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, or at least this year anyway, on this prep. So yeah, that wraps that up. Hopefully you took something from it, hopefully you enjoyed it, and I wasn't just talking absolute waffle for the entire thing. But as usual, if you enjoyed it, do all the usual. And yeah, we'll chat to you in the next one.